Hi, I'm Roberta. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making a rustic cucina povera dish from Emilia-Romagna. It's called Torta Paesana, village cake or peasant's cake, and it was a way of using leftover stale bread. Now, at the beginning of our month in Emilia-Romagna, we made that wonderful pasta, passatelle, which is made with breadcrumbs. This is yet another way that something that would otherwise go to waste becomes a delicious dish. Bread soaked in milk, mixed with a good dose of cocoa, some egg and sugar, and if you like, some nuts or dried fruit. Huge variety. I've seen all sorts of things like hazelnuts, almonds, walnuts, candied fruit. I'm going to use some candied orange peel today. It could be sultanas or raisins, and I'm using pine nuts. First thing we need to do is get our bread chopped up. Let me grab my bread knife and we'll make a start. Now you can use any bread you like for this. I've had it made with all sorts. I wouldn't use a seeded bread, but white bread, wholemeal bread. Again, I wouldn't use a supermarket glug bread for this, but beyond that, any bread you like. I leave the crusts on, and I'll show you once this is softened how I deal with them. After all, this is a dish that's about wasting nothing, so why would you throw those crusts away? That one nearly escaped. Okay, so behind me my milk is simmering or coming up to a simmer. We don't want to boil it. As soon as it starts to simmer, we're going to pour it over the bread, cover it and set it aside for a good 30 to 40 minutes until it's nice and soft. Let me see how the milk's doing. So there's our milk. It's not boiling, but you can see there's just bubbles breaking around the edge. That's all we need. We don't want to bring it to a boil. Let's pour that over our bread and let it work its magic. Now I've had this covered for a good, I'd say 40 minutes, and I've been giving it a bit of a stir, pushing it down below the milk. So you can see now it's quite soggy and most of it has broken up. Now, I'm going to give it a good beat with that wooden spoon to just make it nice and creamy. And depending on the bread you've used, you're probably going to have to get in there and break up some of those crusts. You can try doing it with the spoon. I find, as always, it's easier just to get in there with your fingers. They're nice and soft, but they're not going to break up just by beating with the spoon. And you don't want big chunks of crust in your torta. So just spend a couple of minutes breaking them up so it all mashes well. So there we go. I've given that a good beat. Any large pieces like this, just get in there and break them up with your fingers. It's kind of never ending. There'll always be a few bits in there, but I think I've got most of the big ones, so that's fine. And now, once that's nice and creamy, in with our cocoa. Use a good Dutch processed cocoa. This is just Plaistow from the supermarket, but it does say on here Dutch processed. I'm not sure exactly how the Dutch process their cocoa, but it means you get this gorgeous, dark, rich, almost burgundy colour. And that's going to add a beautiful colour to our finished cake. A good pinch of salt, always a little salt in something sweet, and in with our nuts and dried fruit if we're using them, and whatever type you want to use. Now at this stage we can still be quite vigorous with our beating. I've got my eggs and sugar whisking in the background until they're really light and fluffy. We'll fold that through in a moment. But for now we can still beat quite vigorously, and you certainly want to make sure that that mixed fruit and nuts are evenly distributed. Who would have thought a cake batter from stale bread and milk? How creative were those nonnas and grandmothers and yayas of old? They fed us all so well with not much. So our final assembly is our bread and chocolate mixture and our very well whisked egg and sugar. So I'm just going to fold that in. Now this doesn't really have any raising agents. Your bread is already cooked and your eggs are only going to lighten it a little bit. So we're going to fill our tins almost to the top, and we're folding this gently, but you don't need to worry too much. Just get it folded through there evenly, and you can see and feel that it's lightening it as we go. Now, I'm going to use these gorgeous little tins that we've used before. They're about 10 centimetre diameter. You can use 2 of them, or you can use 1 of these. This is a really, really versatile recipe. I've had it thin like a flan. I've had it thick like a cake. If you use a larger tin, it will be thinner, but it's all delicious. All right, let me make a bit of space here. And give this one more fold so that it is well mixed. Pop the tins on a baking tray just in case they leak. I haven't had it happen, but I'm always a bit nervous with springform tins that they might leak, especially when the mixture is as wet as this one is. Okay, let's divide that up. Try and get it in the middle and not down the sides, again, just to keep it nice and neat. There we go. Having said that, I've got some on the side, but that's fine. We can wipe that down in a minute. And don't be afraid to fill them up to the top. Now, some bread fluffs up more than others, so you might have a little mixture left over. If you have, you can always pop it in a ramekin and make one more little pudding, really, because this is called a torta, it's called a cake, but it really has more the texture of a pudding, as you'll see when we cut into it. I think we'll get all of that in there just. Alright, now again, depends on the shape and size of your tin, depends a little bit on your oven. They're going into the oven for a good 30 minutes, sometimes it's 40, 45. We'll stick a wooden skewer in after 30 and see how we're doing. So here they are, our beautiful Torta Paesana. Now, I checked them at 35 minutes and the skewer did come out virtually dry, but because they're quite pudding-like, they can take a little bit longer. So I left them in for an extra 5 and you'll smell when they're ready. I'm going to leave them in the tin to cool down because it's easier to get them out then. And I simply cut these into quarters and dust them with icing sugar. If you make a bigger one, you're probably going to slice it into 8s. I've even had it baked in a tray where it's cut into squares. It's an incredibly versatile recipe. Torta Paesana, stale bread chocolate cake. Who knew something made from stale bread could taste so good? Enjoy.